Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larsen, a high performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Welcome back to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we help you elevate your energy, ignite your passion, and truly flourish in every aspect of your life. I'm Beth Larsen. Today's episode is all about creating a metamorphosis for you, a profound process of self-transformation, moving beyond the matrix of your current reality, current identity, and stepping into a new flourishing reality. Excuse me. I am thrilled that Dr. Pat is joining me once again, the founder of the Transformation Network. Welcome back.
Yeah.
I know this is a topic that we're both passionate about.
No kidding. And I got to tell you, I get all choked up about it too. Last night I did a show I'm always surprised at this show I do on Thursday nights because it's gut-wrenching and yet at the same time so inspiring. You know, when you're speaking with, or not me, when Mark is speaking with people that have transitioned and moved on, and you hear about somebody losing a son or a daughter, I mean, it just stops you. It stops you. And then you step back a little bit and hear the rest of who they are and how they're pulling themselves up in their lives, you know, to the point of us today. It is a metamorphosis. You know, every little bit of change we go through in life, every little bit causes us to have a response. The question is, are we going to flourish beyond the matrix? Or are we going to get caught in deja vu?
Exactly. And that is the point of this episode today. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. You know, the inspiration for today's episode actually came from a client that I had last week. And it's a pattern that I've seen over and over again with clients when they come to work with me. And it's really that situation where they get themselves stuck in being the identity of the survivor. Now, I want to be really cautious when I put this out there because I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I have high respect for people who have survived things. And I think we all should always have a lot of reverence for it. But when people are ready for transformation and metamorphosis, you can get stuck in that identity of being a survivor and not be able to escape it and not realize that you actually are inadvertently creating scenarios in your life to survive. And it can be a pattern. And that was actually what kind of got me thinking about this whole conversation, the whole topic. You know, this one particular client that I had created over and over in her life scenarios to survive. And it started with a deep trauma that she had early in her life that she really did have to survive. But the subsequent survival was really not necessary. You know, the pattern of it over and over and again. And it was when we really had this deep conversation about, are you ready to leave your survivor behind so you can actually let the thriver and the flourisher come through? And, you know, when you think of a butterfly, the caterpillar has to be left behind to let that butterfly come through. You can't carry the caterpillar with you, although you carry the essence still there. It's a whole different, it's a change, right? It's a metamorphosis.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny you're bringing this up today and we're doing the show, but then it's never a surprise to me because I was chatting with you a little bit and, you know, we had some absolutely interesting experiences. And I want to ask you this question about this, you know, because I want to talk to the point of, you know, our memory factor. And, you know, last night we had somebody come on the show that was just gut-wrenching conversation about her nieces and the dad passed away and remarried. And man, it took me back to my 7-year-old self of when that was going on for me. So what you're talking about and the butterfly effect, So, right? And we're
Yeah,
talking about that and the idea of metamorphosis. We go through things in life. And I just want to be very clear. Sometimes survival, that's your first choice. That's got to be your
absolutely.
go-to. It
Yep.
doesn't mean it's your home. And I
Yeah,
think that's what you're saying. But it's
absolutely.
but
That's it.
it's your go-to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's something you become comfortable with because there is so much energy around being a survivor, and so, once you've actually gotten through something really deep and something traumatic, having survived it can feel so empowering, right? And yet there's a level of empowerment beyond that.
Yeah.
That's my point of the show today. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, let's talk about metamorphosis. It's one of
Yeah,
those words that you love to say, and it's one of the words that people have a sense of, but it has some very, very deep meaning
yeah.
in, a journey of transformation. And I think that's the key point. Yes, the butterfly is used quite a bit. Here, funny comment. Somebody asked us why we didn't use the butterfly for the
Mm.
transformation network.
Oh,
And it never entered my mind to use the butterfly for the transformation network. We have a totally different icon of human beings. And
right.
so I called the person back, and it took me about a week, Beth, to figure this out. And I called the person back and I said, let me tell you why we didn't use it. As beautiful as the butterfly is, its life is short lived.
Mm.
And I said, the butterfly represents one version of transformation. But if we had to really pick something that represented the transformation other than the double head, I call it a double helix
Yeah.
mind, I would have picked the dragonfly. But it doesn't matter what
Mm.
you pick. We're talking about metamorphosis. We're
Yeah.
talking about going beyond what is known, sometimes beyond what you can touch. Isn't that what we're talking about here today?
Yeah. Yeah. And by now, you know me, I like to go into the etymology and really look at the words and find the deeper meanings behind all of it. So of course, when this word popped into my head, I'm like, okay, well, immediately going to the dictionary. And we did a whole show not long ago about mastering your meta. So I already knew meta meant going beyond. But really, what is morphosis? What is the root of the word? And morphe is a Greek word that means to form or to shape. So meta is going beyond the form, going beyond the shape. It's a complete shift in identity or form, and it can be done either naturally or supernaturally.
Mm.
So that would really be that going beyond, right? That place where you are moving not just the physical form, but you have to have a complete transformation from the inside out, really. Um, and going deeper into it, of course, um, I think this idea of meta is really about transcending your comfort zone and tapping into that space of pure potentiality.
Yeah.
Um, Last episode, we were talking about Kronos and Kairos and
Yes.
Greek mythology and all of that. Well, there's Greek mythology here too, because the Greek god Morpheus was the god of dreams. And he was the god who could actually shape and influence the dreams of mortals and gods. He had the ability to form and reform the visions that people saw, guiding them through alternate realities. And in this respect, he really represents the power of the imagination and the ability of us to shape our reality through our dreams,
Yeah. Yeah.
through our imagination.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about this for a minute because I know this is on this is on the agenda today, and I couldn't wait to talk about it. So it's no mistake that in the blockbuster movie series, I used to call it a trilogy, but then we did a fourth movie.
Yeah,
Um, Morpheus, one of the main characters, was named Morpheus. And
right.
in the movie, it doesn't dawn on you, but when the movie's over, and in the context of what you're going to talk about today, that name makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Completely, completely. Morpheus in the movie is the guide who awakens Neo to the truth. And he's the one who helps him really understand that you don't see things as they are, you see things as they could be. And your reality can reform and reshape around you when you are going into the imagination and disconnecting from the matrix of what you think reality is.
Mm.
So it's really that idea of breaking free from current form. Really all of Hollywood movies, they know this stuff. They've got the deep inside knowledge of what this all is. It was not a mistake that those names were picked, Morpheus and Neo. And so really, there's so much too I encourage anyone to go back and watch the movie this weekend. It's one of my favorites, of course,
I
but
watch it all the time. So
yeah,
true disclosure,
yeah,
here's the weirdness. Sometimes I have a hard time sleeping at night.
mhm,
And, everybody has their own juice, right? Some people take pills. I put on one of two Matrix movies in the background. I
yeah,
either put on the original Matrix, but now I'm putting on the fourth Matrix. Why am I doing that? These people that made the sisters that made the fourth movie, they understand, they to this day understand the vibration of things. See, and
right,
that's also what we're talking about here today,
yeah,
is there's a vibration to that little, that just, the cocoon that gets formed in this butterfly. I mean,
yeah,
how does the butterfly pop out of there? But you
yeah,
see, here we are today, and this is something you and I talked about before. So I want you to really take us through this, especially in the work you do with your clients.
mhm,
Even the best of the best people find that they need superhuman strength to bust out of that cocoon.
yeah,
But it is the desire to want to do that. And you know what Morpheus did in the movie, the first movie, and even the fourth movie? What Morpheus did is hold the faith for
right.
Neo and the entire crew.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And keep bringing him back to it over and over and over again. There's a phrase he uses or a quote in that movie about free your mind. I'm trying to remember it. I thought I had written it down here, but yeah, it's that whole quote of free your mind, Neo. You've got to free your mind.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it is. When you're wanting this deep level of transformation, you mentioned frequency or vibration, I should say. That's frequency.
Yes.
And there is a frequency to flourishing, and there's a frequency to thriving, and there's a frequency to surviving. We've talked about this many times on these shows, and it's an elevation of frequency. The caterpillar is low down on the ground. The caterpillar can only see what's in front of him, literally, right? And as far as he can crawl. But the butterfly can take wings or has wings, can take flight and can see the big picture and can see, all the magnitude
Yeah.
of what's ahead
Yeah.
and what's possible and
And
what could
don't you
be.
love the butterfly having this is part of the law of attraction and what we're talking about here today as well. There are people that are on the
Yeah.
edge. I know this because I've been going through this for myself. I didn't recognize it. I always love to look at the shows that I'm going to do in advance, just like this one, because I always get then an aha moment. But, what does the butterfly have an innate ability to do? Are they given spider eyes that they can see everything? No.
Right.
But it knows about being attracted to
Yeah.
beauty, to
Yeah.
being attracted to nourishment, to being attracted. I mean, what does it land on? Right?
Nectar. Yeah. Beautiful flowers, nectar, all of
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's
that's a
what you're
great point.
teaching people. So you
Yeah.
see, this show is, yes, we're talking about it, but it's also to really emphasize what you and I learned, probably I learned the hard way, that I could not take this journey alone. That
Right.
if left to myself without the people, the coaches I have, and you working with other people, I wouldn't have been able to really see or get a sense of where my stuckness was.
Right.
But let's talk about that in terms of being on the edge. What does that look like for people? I love the word stuck. This is something Unstuckable is one of my brands that we're, really putting out there because, like you, I'm seeing it over and over again. But there's
Yeah.
got to be a catalyst for movement. There's got to be a sign when you see people stuck in their own I can't decide on the pill to take. Do I want reality, or do I just want to stay here in deja vu? What have
Yeah.
you seen along the way, and what is a catalyst for transformation?
Yeah. Unfortunately, a catalyst for transformation most of the time is because things have gotten so bad that are they've reached the point where it has to change, or something from the outside is creating that change. I'd love to believe that it's people wanting to just have the change just for change's sake, but that's not the human way, unfortunately, most of the time. You know, we've talked before about the concept of entelechy. We all have that innate force within us that does want to grow and evolve and change and have that transformation. So I do believe that that is within all of us. The desire is within all of us, but the comfort zone, the humanness of our physical body and our comfort zone, and not wanting to go into the discomfort and the triggers that come with all of it. That's the thing that really keeps people stuck, from exercising that innate intelligence within them. So I would say, unfortunately, the vast majority of the time, it is because things have gotten either so bad that they just don't want to do it anymore, or something is forcing them to do it. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. It's
Yeah.
only bad if we resist it.
Mm.
If you
Yeah.
can actually wake up and start to see the gift in it, I will say back to when I went through burnout, right? That I had to be forced into it. I was not going there all willingly on my own because I wasn't recognizing it. My body knew it, but I wasn't tuning into what my body was saying. And so it took the burnout to actually force me to step away and start to actually do things differently. But I look back on that now, and like, I think the burnout was the greatest gift I ever received. So, where at the time it didn't feel like a gift,
Yeah.
it certainly is a gift now, because it gave me a chance to actually break free of that matrix that I had put myself in.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about this because, part of this is getting into that place, the cocoon stage. Let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
You and I have been through a number of these different things. Call it burnout, call it whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's a place where you become unable to move forward. Let's just say that. I get asked a million times, because Created Unstuckable, what do you mean by unstuck?
Yeah.
And I said, well, imagine this. You want to move forward, but imagine your feet embedded in cement.
Mm,
You've stepped in cement, it's hardened over. You could feel yourself stepping in, it's hardened over. You want something else, but you cannot get it. And sometimes, in order to move forward, you just have to stop. Isn't that
yeah.
the cocoon stage?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the metaphor that you're using there. And I would invite people to take that cement and turn it into quicksand, because
It's
quicksand, actually, the difference being, the cement, it's like you got to like break something to get out. Quicksand, you just have to stop resisting.
There you go.
Just got to stop resisting. And so in a way that's actually easier. But it's the same process though. If you do resist, the harder you
Mhm.
try to get out of it, the further deeper that you'll go into it.
Yeah, it's so funny I
So
brought up the cement thing though.
yeah.
Yeah, as a kid, I'm from a family of, what do we call them now? I don't have the right, masons, bricklayers, cement people, right? They
Yeah.
came from the country, the old country. That was
Yeah.
their forte. And as a kid, I actually did get stuck in cement that wasn't dry yet. But even what you and I are talking about is, you are feeling like Neo.
Yeah.
Where you are is not right.
Right. Exactly.
You struggling to get out, you're looking for the signs,
Yeah.
right? You're scanning the universe, something shows up, oh, a little rabbit on an arm, then you go to, you see, do you think, let me ask you this question as we talk about the cocoon, you know, we often think nothing is going on in the cocoon, but
Oh,
contrary to that, that's not true. Take us
so much
through
going
what
on.
the cocoon is for and how
Yeah.
we as human beings can use it.
Yeah. the cocoon stage is really where the old identity dissolves and the new self forms. And it is so important to understand that that cocoon, and we use that term cocooning, right? When we talk about going inward, and we talk about nurturing and nourishing, because there's a lot of that going on inside the cocoon. There's also a complete dissolving going on. I mean, literally inside that cocoon, the caterpillar is being dissolved by the digestive juices of its own stomach. So it's literally dissolving the old version of itself. And in the process, the butterfly is what gets to emerge. But it takes that dissolving, right? It's not this fun little process that goes on in there. It's messy inside. It gets gooky, gunky. That wasn't a word, but you know what I mean.
I mean, that is exactly what
Messy.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little baby that's formed,
Yeah.
right? That baby needs a very safe place for its
Yes.
little bones to grow. And you know what I love about this is what goes on inside cocooning or birth or anything like that. There are also things that show up for those moments of time that has to happen that do not show up other times in our lives. You know, for babies, it's a special, I'm going to call it a drug. It's a special drug that seems to generate in the body only at that one time, you know, that
Right.
allows that little baby. For the cocoon, what did you call it? Oh, it's all the gunky, mushy stuff, but those are the things that are promoting growth, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And we've got to be willing to let go of the old so that the new can come through. You know, we've got to be willing to dissolve what was so that what can be
Mhm.
can emerge. You know, that's probably, that willingness is all it really takes. But you know, going back to the cocoon piece, I think it's so important that people are creating an environment for themselves that is a cocoon, not not cocooning themselves away from the world per se, but
Mhm.
that they're setting themselves up for success with it. That's why so much of my work, I do include a lot of somatic work, you know, doing breath work and nervous system work, because that's really, to me, what the cocoon is all about. It's helping condition them so that they can break free, so that they can step out in courage. You know, we did a show on courage a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And courage is necessary because you do need courage to go through that cocoon.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you'll forever stay the caterpillar, right? If you're not willing to go into the messiness of the cocoon.
Let's talk about Morpheus and what Morpheus told Neo.
Yeah.
And for those of you just tuning in, you know, what we're talking about here is, you know, Beth is this idea of metamorphosis and flourishing beyond the matrix. That's what we're talking about. And, you know, the Matrix was that movie where so many people have gone back and looked at it. Even today people are talking about it and we're using it today. Morpheus, you know, whether it's you understand Morpheus in ancient times and what Morpheus did, but Morpheus in the movie, Greek mythology, but also dreams, held the dream, held the space for Neo. But when it came time for Neo to lose the old identity, the dialogue that went on between them was the dialogue that we could be having with our clients, with our
Yeah.
family. So let's talk about you know, what happens when we dissolve the old identity and how did
Yeah.
Morpheus help Neo do that?
Yeah, I love this. I actually wrote this part of the quote down. This is the part, and if you've seen this movie, you're going to remember this part. Morpheus says to Neo, Neo, sooner or later, you're going to realize, just as I did, that there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And then he also said, and Neo says to Morpheus, what are you trying to tell me, that I can dodge bullets? And Morpheus says to Neo, no, Neo, I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to.
Yeah.
And that's really what it, you know, when you break all that down, what it really, and in essence, is all about. You know, you've got to realize first off that you can't just have the information. You can't sit there going to seminars and reading books and listening to podcasts and taking it all in and not doing anything with it. That's the walking the path that has to happen. And that's the part where a lot of resistance comes in. Because, you know, that's usually the first step forward, as people start to, you know, search for the information that they think is going to create the
Yeah.
transformation. But the transformation doesn't come from the information, it comes from the embodiment. of the information. So the walking the path. And then that whole part about, what are you trying to tell me that I can dodge bullets? No, when you're ready, you won't have to. And that to me is also that part about the mind and the imagination, that when you imagine so clearly the butterfly version of you, that version of you that's flourishing, when you're in that state and you're acting from that state and you're being the butterfly more than you're being the caterpillar, you're tipping over into the butterfly. That's when you won't have to dodge the bullets anymore. You don't have to protect yourself anymore. You don't have to be in the cocoon anymore. You are breaking free at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And I love what you're talking about because, this is where, why do each of us work with other people? And first of all, you find people that you're safe with. You have to have a safe space. Neo and Morpheus, that was a safe space for Neo. But there
Yeah.
were others, Trinity, of course, who became Tiffany in the fourth movie.
Yeah.
But, this is what you have to do. I want to ask you this question, right? We have common fears. We have obstacles that go on during this phase. I mean, let's just stay with the butterfly for a minute. If that were a human being, there's the darkness in there. There's the tightness in there. See, all the things we use to describe sometimes how we feel. You could be
Right.
describing a butterfly's experience to someone and not even mention it's a butterfly, and they will come back and say, that's exactly how I feel, Beth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. And it's understanding. I think it's having somebody who understands what you've been through also
Yes.
to help guide you, to be that guide. I find that invaluable. Having either a coach or a mentor, um, somebody who's been a little bit ahead of the path than you, is that safe space, is the
Yeah.
person that can help you hold the vision until you've solidified the vision.
Yeah. How do
You know,
people find out about you? Let's make sure
oh,
folks know how they can work with you.
yeah,
I mean, you and I both reference clients throughout here, but it's so important if people are listening to this and they're feeling like they're in that cocoon. I just want to say to everybody, help us on the way. Beth and I did not get here on our own. You know, Getting out of that quicksand, yeah, you need a little help for that. How do people find out about you? How do they work with you?
yeah, definitely. They can go to BethLarsenCoaching.com, my website. If you look on the Work With Me page, you're going to find a variety of different ways that we can work together. So really, I think depending on where people are in their journey, are they at the place where they're starting to take information in? Well, I've got the Flourish Alchemy mentorship, membership, I should say, where you can come into that container and start to get information as well as support. But if you're ready to go even deeper, there's one-on-one coaching. Um, so it really depends on where people are in their journey. But no matter where you're at, there is a place for you to help you evolve and to emerge into that next level version of yourself.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue with this thread. And if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're picking up on this right now. What is the thread? Most people won't recognize it, but there is a thread. There's a thread of doubt and there's a thread of faith. And I mean faith as belief. There's that thread that runs throughout the movies of the Matrix. It is not the thing that a butterfly experiences. Why? Because somehow the butterfly knows if I cocoon, I'm going to emerge.
mhm.
When we come back, we're going to talk about how this dance between doubt and faith works and how it's so naturally a part of the process. And we'll also remind you there is no spoon. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Okay, we're back. Here we are talking about metamorphosis. We've been diving into the matrix and really talking about this piece of the cocoon and the safe haven that it provides for that metamorphosis to occur. And Dr. Pat was just mentioning before we went on break, the line between faith and doubt. and how important that is actually to the transformation, to the metamorphosis. And you do see that theme all throughout the movies. Dr. Pat, you were just talking about you were talking about the fourth movie,
The
right?
fourth movie, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can you share just a little bit about this? Because I
yes.
actually think it's a really important thing. And I have to go back and watch the fourth movie again because I've forgotten this part. But you were talking about that part of Trinity.
Yes.
You mind
Yeah.
sharing
What I
that?
love about this, and I didn't really hit me until we were doing this show and we're talking about the cocoon. What I was fascinated by as we're talking about this is the fact that Trinity, Tiffany in the fourth movie, is in the cocoon most of the movie. What do I mean? In the pod. She's in the pod.
Yeah.
And, up until the point that Neo is removed, she is highly dependent upon him. And then
Mm,
he's gone. And for some strange reason, that doesn't really impact the matrix, which they never explain. However, her metamorphosis, her busting out of the cocoon, this is what I found fascinating. See, this is the message. We are so capable of so much more than
yes.
we imagine.
Hmm.
Number one, a world without doubt, it's hard to find faith or trust.
Hmm.
Doubt is the catalyst for extraordinary strength of conviction, if you
Mm,
can get there. But in the movie, she's in the pod and you watch her in the matrix evolve. She's not
right.
out of the pod. She's evolving out, which is no one in the matrix had quite done that, right?
Right.
In all
Right.
of the other movies except her. Neo did it a little bit, but what happened to her, and of course, there's a point where they finally do pull her out and a whole lot of things about consciousness. And then she turns into like a superpower. But up to that point, she's pretty much on her own. She
Yeah.
looks at her matrix husband and says, I hate you. I hate you saying that word. But you see her throughout the matrix as she's talking to Neo throughout the movie. She's saying, he said something to me and I could have ripped his eyeball out. So you see Trinity emerging from Tiffany. And you
Yes.
see, that's what happens in the cocoon. If we're given enough of a stimulus to let us grow, a butterfly is not in the cocoon without help to grow. And neither
Right.
are we. And that's what's so important. But you must dissolve your
Yeah.
old identity. And I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but I'm faced with that now. And there are different points in my life. We've talked about this, about Gene Houston. And
Right.
there have been different points in my life where I had to dissolve an old identity, but 9 times out of 10, you can't even see it. So let's talk about the role of dissolving that, but the role that courage plays.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to touch on something else here
Sure.
that's in alignment with this as well, because there's the matrix of the collective that we are kind of ingrained with, right? From birth, we're being told, and that's the matrix, and that's a lot of what the matrix in the movie is about. But then there's also the matrix of our own making, and that's the part where it's like you got to be willing to dissolve your own thoughts from a conscious perspective, realize when you're actually creating that matrix for yourself, and being able to break free of that matrix is really the most important one, because then it doesn't matter what's going on out in the collective. When you have the ability to dissolve the identity of that you're creating for yourself at this point, when we're little, we're being conditioned to believe we are who we are, because we don't have the conscious, what do I want to say, the brain is not at the point of being able to reject, right, until we're developing in our teen years and we start to develop that critical thinking, right? We're just taking it all in as to who we are. But once you have that critical thinking, you really have the ability, and then you have the response ability to do what
Yeah.
you want to do with it. Do you
Yeah.
want to keep buying into the matrix that you've hooked into, or do you want to, and create your own matrix from there, or do you want to create your own matrix? And so that takes a lot of courage. That takes self-sovereignty, inside that cocoon. Well, to be willing to go into the cocoon in the first place, right? Because that's a big step right there. Otherwise, again, you would stay as like the caterpillar for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I share a story every once in a while and I stopped sharing it because people took it the wrong way. But I want to talk to this for a minute. I want to talk to imagination. Now, I don't know what a butterfly experience is, but clearly we're talking about a movie where imagination is crucial, critical. From the
Yeah.
very, very essence of the first movie and especially the fourth, it's all about imagination. It's
Yep.
actually a movie inside a movie,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the and I want to ask you about this because when we're born, there's a part of us that has not shut off our imagination.
Right.
Now, what do I mean? Okay, there are some of us that have had kind of little wild imaginations, but a baby imagines itself walking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do I know? I don't know for sure, but they have to imagine themselves walking. Why? They never stop trying to do it.
Right.
They have to have some kind of consciousness. I'm on the floor. I don't want to be on the floor. I imagine myself walking on my little hind feet there. And they try and they try and they try until they do.
Right.
We call it a vision.
Yep.
Imagination is what I think Einstein put imagination at the top of the food chain for him. But I want to talk to you about this for a minute because the cocoon phase is especially important for this. Why? If we let it, if we allow it to. COVID was that for me.
Mm.
COVID allowed me to think about our network and our programming and change it.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd have done that if we didn't go into that cocoon phase. Now,
Right.
COVID was not very happy, but I want to ask you this question because I think it's extremely important in the work you do to help people. As a kid, I am an introvert. Yes. Don't be shocked, everybody, because every time I say this, I get like 10 emails. I scored so high on the Myers-Briggs as an introvert, they made me take it 4 times. As a child, I would put myself under the stairwell closet. Closets sometimes
Yeah.
have stairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would go into that closet. And Mama Doris, my stepmom, must have gotten it. She must have understood.
Mm.
Why? She never knocked on the door. She just made sure I was okay. She would bring me water. It's not like I stayed there for days,
Yeah.
but what was I doing?
Yeah. You're
The
you're
extra
protecting your
stimulant.
energy for one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had two stepsisters that were extroverts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what that cocoon looks like for people. And what have you found, Beth, that you do to help people emerge in the cocoon and then morph out to the butterfly?
Yeah. Well, you said something really important there, and that's about having the vision, and being able to use your imagination. Honestly, that's where I start always with people. Is what's your juicy dream? We've talked about that before. What is that juicy dream? What would you love to have? Because that's the seed that's planted within you, and so being able to have some sort of visualization to it, whether I mean, it doesn't have to be a perfect visualization, but to be able to start to let yourself dream and see what it might be. I think again, talking about Morpheus, that's what Morpheus's name was all about, is being able to dream and to vision, to see something um, that isn't in your current reality, but being able to start to see it. That's the starting point. It's why all companies who are successful have a strong vision. Because without a vision, the people will perish. Right? That's in the Bible, I think. That is that's the starting point always, is to have that vision, and to be able to see it as that or even something better, like knowing that that's not the end all be all, but it's that or something even better. So that's always the starting point. And working with people on their imagination muscles is really important. Like that's a big part of, again, the work that I do with people, because it is a muscle that is just atrophied in most of us. Just because, again, we hook into the matrix and seeing things as they are. Being able to exercise that muscle is so important because we use our senses to tell us what is quote unquote our reality. But when you can combine your imagination with your senses and actually start to experience it in the imagination, well, your body doesn't know the difference. So it starts to go to work creating that vision from the inside out. The chemistry in your body will start to change when you are connecting your senses to your imagination, to what you actually want to see. We see this all the time with people from a stress perspective, right? They're using their imagination to imagine the worst case scenarios. And so the body goes into a complete transformation through stress chemicals in the body. And so that is no different. It's a transformation as well. It's just not the type of transformation that most people want. So being able to really actively use the imagination, connecting it to what you do want, that version of you that you would love, and be willing to let yourself actually start to feel that chemistry in your body. That is a process, but then it also takes working with the nervous system the way it already is. So what I mean by that is, our nervous systems get so locked into the stress piece and get so into the comfort that when we start to do things that are different, it sees it as danger.
Yeah.
So, it's the threatening of the life of it. But what did we talk about needs to happen anyways inside that cocoon is we have to dissolve the old version. So you got to be willing to let that old version of you die. So the new version of you can actually be born.
Yeah. See, I love this. And we're talking about movies. Okay. So what is my pet peeve with movies? Okay. I'm sorry about this. Let me just explain. As a kid, I had a rough childhood. So my way out was movies. And back in the day, movies were very special. Now movies are not special. You wait for them to come on streaming, whatever. But back in the day, not too long ago, you had to actually go to the movie theater, right?
Right.
So you had to pick out the movies. But as a young child, that was what I did. My sister did other things, but my mom never stopped me. I went to movies, right? So here's the thing I want to ask you about. Because as we emerge, right, as we use our imagination, and to your point, I believe this, please correct me. Every setback I've ever had in my life, and I use the word setback, some people call them challenges.
Right.
I rarely use the word problem ever.
Right.
Setback, challenge, whatever you want to call it, has led to a setup for something better. And now I hold on to that knowing, that belief. And I wonder, Beth, if we could help people understand that and hold on to that you are right on the edge. You're right on the precipice for turning into the beautiful butterfly.
Yeah.
And then people will ask you, but it's hard. Can you help me? Can you work with me? Can you make sure that I get to become that beautiful butterfly? How many times have you been asked this? And what do you do to help people? Right? I know you've been asked by your clients because I get asked.
Yeah. Yeah. There, and again, I'm just going to touch on something here because it goes right in line with what you were just saying. There's the part of you have to identify more with a butterfly than you are with a caterpillar. So you just have to get to that 51%, where you're starting to identify more as butterfly than you are caterpillar. Because what you were just talking about there of like, I rarely see things as problems or I'll look at it as a challenge. The caterpillar will see things at the ground phase and see the challenge. The caterpillar will look at it from the ground and see the obstacle because that's all it can see in front of itself. It will see the problem. But the butterfly will look at the exact same thing and see the opportunity. We'll see not the setup in terms of I got set up, but they'll see the butterfly would see the setup for what's next. And it's the same situation, but being able to see it from two different angles is what this is all about. You got to step away from the caterpillar and step into the butterfly and start seeing things as the butterfly so that transformation can really take flight. And, a lot of things that do help with this. I'm not a huge fan of what most people would call affirmations, because I look at them a little bit differently. I do use them to an extent, but I call them divine declarations. I
Yeah.
think I've talked about this on a show
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It is deciding and declaring something. Um, there's such a finiteness with it. It's like, I have decided that this is who I am. I've decided I'm the butterfly. I am declaring that I am the butterfly. And for me, it's declaring that divinity within, that is the I am statement. That is, this is it. Right. So I know some people would look at that and call it an affirmation, but to me, it has a completely different feel to it. And when I work with clients, we work through and really look at what their divine declarations are. What are they declaring for themselves? Because whatever they're declaring is what they're getting in their life.
Yeah.
Working on visualization and really creating some powerful anchors. Anchoring is a powerful NLP process. And when you can anchor and create anchors for yourself, and what do I mean by that? We're talking about butterflies here. I have a client actually that has a butterfly tattoo. I have a client that has a butterfly keychain. These are anchors. These are things that anytime you look at it, anytime you pick up your keys, you're anchoring in. It's a connection to that next version of yourself. So you can create powerful anchors. You can create an anchor every time you walk through a doorway. You do your divine declaration. It's something that actually creates the consistency. I like to use my alarms on my phone, right? And I'll set an alarm for every couple of hours,
Yeah.
and it will anchor into something, whatever it is that is that part of the transformation to next. It's that cue and that clue to actually anchor in. And as you do that, you're starting to tip the scales. And when I say tip the scales, I mean tip the scales from caterpillar to butterfly. As soon as you get into 51% range, which, I mean, it's not like there's an actual mathematical, I'm now 51% there, but you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Like, you'll
But you
feel
can
the
feel
tipping point.
it.
Yeah, you can feel it.
You can feel it. You can feel when my mom used to say, over the hump.
Yes, exactly.
We used to say, what hump?
Yeah.
Until we realized what she was saying. It's almost like you get to a point where you start to breathe better.
Yeah. Yeah. And the belief, it's in that moment that the belief is actually dropping from the conscious to the subconscious. Until it does, you have to consciously be deciding. You have to consciously be declaring.
Yeah.
Like, it's the consciousness that's not attaching to the cocoon. It's the consciousness that's seeing both pieces of it and saying, this is what I'm deciding. But you do it enough and it becomes the habit. It drops into the subconscious and you don't have to consciously think it anymore. That's when the butterfly is emerging.
Yeah.
I actually had a client this week. I was so proud of her because she was saying something in our call, and she was talking about she had was comparing herself to somebody else in her industry, and she was using words like, this other person was doing amazing, and they have the same business, and this other person was doing just incredible in that field. And she was looking at it and she's like, I want some of that. I wonder if she can do that, I can do that. And I had to just stop her and I said, we've got to sit here and celebrate huge right now, because those words just came out of your mouth naturally. A year ago, 6 months ago, you would have looked at that and been saying things like, why can't I have that? Why am I not doing that? She shifted. She's over the 51% because she didn't need any prompting, no redirecting, no correcting. It just naturally flowed through for her to be able to look at that and see, if she can have that, so can I. Instead of, she's got that, why don't I? That's a cocoon. She's been in the cocoon. She's no longer the caterpillar. She's now butterfly emerging, and it's all over her business. It's all over her life right now. Like, it just, my heart was bursting for joy with her.
What
and I'm
a
like,
great
this may seem like
story.
such a small thing, but it's so huge.
See, this is what I was trying to say before. And let's take a minute and let folks know how they can get a hold of you, talk to you, get a consult with you, because
Yep.
these are the things that really keep us inspired. They
Yep.
keep us going. The work that you're doing with people, sometimes you can see things that other people can't, right? How do
Yeah.
people find out about you? How do they work with you? All of the above.
Yeah, you can find me at my website, BethLarsenCoaching.com. That's Larson with an E. And on there, on the Work With Me page, you'll see a variety of ways to work. If somebody is actually in that cocoon state, I highly recommend doing some of the breath work. I
Mm.
have monthly breath work called Somatic Magic, and that helps you if you're in that space of resistance. So I would look for that on the website. I have a monthly membership, or I also do one-on-one, and you can find links for all of that on my website.
Yeah. I love that we use the Matrix today. And again, I know you're going to go back and watch 4. There are different parts in that movie that literally you can watch how what you said throughout the show today, you can watch it emerge in
Yeah.
Tiffany, of course, Trinity. And, what you watch is what you just described with your client. There's a point in the movie where they're having coffee or tea together, and both of them are still in their pods. But
Yeah.
you can see her asking the question, I played your game and there's a character in the game and da 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 da. And I think she looks like me. So you see, they're in the cocoon, both of them at this point.
Yeah.
And they are, while in the cocoon, literally knowing that they
Yeah.
need to emerge from it. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That butterfly that's in that cocoon, it knows.
It does.
It's not worrying.
Yeah.
Thank you for today's show. I'd love to know your personal message, what you'd like to leave us with. And thank you for
Yeah.
using one of my favorite movies.
Somehow I knew it would be. It was it was mine too. I have to think what other movies need to be here in episodes in the future. But yeah, I mean, this conversation of metamorphosis is just such a powerful one, and I really hope that the listeners today, that it's inspired them to go beyond the matrix of their own current reality and the matrix of their own making, if they are making it, and really embrace that process of becoming their own blue morpho butterfly. We didn't talk so much about the blue morpho, but there is a particular butterfly called the blue morpho, and it's a beautiful butterfly. And I think we all have that blue morpho butterfly within us. So for the listeners, if they found value in today's episode, please subscribe to the Flourish Frequency Show, and watch us here on Transformation Network, and share it with somebody else who might need a boost. And if you're ready to take the transformation even further, come join me over in the Flourish Alchemy membership, where we can support you in stepping into your highest potential every day.
Yeah, I want to encourage you to do that, because I'll tell you, if you're looking at me and you're looking at Beth and you're looking at anybody in your life that you see doing a show like this, we did not do this alone.
Yeah.
On my Thursday night show, Mark and I are always talking about a very particular group that people can join. This is
Yeah.
a place where Beth is offering you an opening to be around people that may not want exactly what you want, but want to come out of that cocoon and flourish. Thank you so much for a great show, Beth.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next time. And yeah, I bet you're all going to be going back and watching that Matrix 4 again, aren't you?
I know I am. And I can't wait for number 5.
Yeah, we got to do a whole show on what we think that should be about. Thank you all
Exactly.
for tuning us in. Emily, thank you so much for pushing all the right buttons. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larsen. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your Flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsenCoaching.com. That's BethLarsenCoaching.com, Larsen with an E.